What's that? Okay.
There was a photograph of a low-maintenance brunette with some glasses on that you had videotaped. She was in Ward 4 in Nashua posing as an election official. She's only like 40, 50 feet away from the moderator, and we chased her around. We tried to catch her in Manchester. She was popping up here and there, but she was telling people, yes, I'm an election official, yes, you can vote.
You're talking about this lady right here?
Right there. We've been stalking her in Massachusetts. We've been trying to find her. She got out of Ward 4 before we could get there, and I think she was popped up in Manchester, but that is not a New Hampshire citizen, and she was giving people legal advice. And why aren't they investigating that woman right there and find out who that is? And the moderator, I went to see him. How can you stand there 30, 40 feet away and have this woman stopping voters? Try that in any other town. See if you can stop voters and talk to them on their way in. The moderator would stop you real quick. She was inside the building, just feet away from the polls.
Has she been subpoenaed?
We don't even know who she is.
Okay.
Oh, they have one subpoena.
Why don't you ask them why they haven't subpoenaed her? I don't understand it.
They didn't even look. They're covering their butts. That's what's going on.
Yeah, but I think that sunlight is the best disinfectant. I mean, you gotta. I mean, I know that you're doing the work, but maybe if everyone in this room, if every single person in this room called them and asked them, have you subpoenaed Susan? Have you subpoenaed Robert Bell? Have you subpoenaed the Australians who were fined? They were fined. The Bernie Sanders campaign was fined. Have you subpoenaed the guy who committed the misdemeanor, who voted on Silly Road, Hugo Palma? Does anyone know the answer to those questions? Okay, so you didn't subpoena the guy from the Sanders campaign, the Australians, Susan and Robert Bell, but you did subpoena James O'Keefe. I think you've got your question you need to ask. Other?
James, what could we do to help
other
than that?
You can call up the Department of Justice and ask the questions, but continue. I interrupted you.
Okay, what about in May? Would you like a protest outside wherever you're going to be or anything like that?
The date of the subpoena.
Yes.
The date of the subpoena is May the 17th on 300 Chestnut Street, Manchester, New Hampshire. What's that? Manacle. I don't know. That would be pretty crazy if that were to be true. I hope not. But I think that what's that? Wear a camera. Wear a camera is something you can do in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
If you want to sign up for the cause and expose them. But I think you got to ask questions. I think you got to call up the office and ask some serious questions and not be afraid.
Could you put up the number and the
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Mike Thornton, Milford. What kind of video nuclear counterstrike might we expect?
Oh, I can't reveal that just quite yet. But there's always, I've been doing this for 7 years here in just this state here, and I always release another video. And we do have other people in New Hampshire. The man, Sullivan, asked me what are the names of the people that are here, thinking that I would give it to him. So maybe the purpose of the subpoena is for me to give the names of our undercover journalists, and I just will not do that. I will not do that. So, but they're asking me to. They're asking me to cooperate. So do you understand the problem? They're asking me to give the names of my people, and if I don't cooperate, what are they going to do? Hold me in contempt of court and jail me? You really think they're going to do that? Okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Thank you.
Right here?
Judicial Watch?
I have. I've shared this with them, and look forward to them helping. I haven't heard from them yet. Listen, Veritas is the tip of the spear. There are very few people who are willing to put their necks out to expose these things precisely because they don't want to find themselves in the situations that I find myself in. It's not because they're bad people or they're not courageous. It's just that they want to avoid getting themselves into situations where this sort of retaliation occurs. And that is why there's, as far as I know, very few people in the United States doing this sort of investigative reporting. There's no currency in it. It's not profitable. It's expensive. We've got 14 lawyers at Project Veritas. The reason why is because people just don't, it's just a pain in the ass. They don't want to be involved in speaking truth to power in this way, so we're kind of on our own. We're on our own. And that's the way it is. And that's what you do when you are the tip of the spear, and we're proud to do it, and we won't stop, and we appreciate people like you coming here and showing your support, because I think it's actually the citizens, the grassroots people, the people who are the most saltest of the earth, who actually have the most power to ask those sorts of questions. I think that it's you that can make the difference, and that's what I'm asking you to do, is to call that number on Monday morning and ask the question.
I'm Representative Judy Aaron, and first of all, I want to thank you so very much for everything that you do to bring these things to light and to show people what's going on. My question for you is, how did you feel about the way the newspaper reported it, that he accidentally voted twice?
Yeah, the newspaper was an interesting example in journalistic bias, but we've come to know, I don't know what facts led him to believe that he accidentally did that. I mean, I accidentally shot someone, accidentally committed a crime. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, but based upon his behavior, his cadence, his manner when we spoke with him, it seemed to me that he knew what he was doing. And when he didn't want to be broadcasted, which, you know, you can't do an interview and then go, don't put that on the air. But the fact that he expressed opposition to us telling the story indicated to me that he knew that what he did was wrong. So I don't understand why they wrote accidental, and I don't understand why they wrote target the man. Veritas targets man for voter fraud. In a just world, it would probably say something like, you know, exposes crime, AG, waiting on AG's decision to prosecute. But that, you know, we live in a very unjust world. And I think it comes down to one basic fact, that these people do not think that voter fraud even is possible, that it's even possible. Not that it happens. Forget for a moment how much it happens. They actually would say that it's not even a possibility. So how do you report on someone who busts open your narrative and shows that the emperor has no clothes? What do? Well, you spin it, you as good as you can to make it look like this is a poor man who, you know, he didn't do anything wrong, and, you know, they're violating his privacy rights. Well, you forfeit your right to not be broadcasted when you commit a Class B felony and vote twice. That's the argument that broadcasters make. You forfeit your right to not be broadcasted when you behave that way in a free and open society that places a value on the First Amendment. This is the United States. We place a value on the First Amendment. It's in the Bill of Rights, it's in the Constitution. It's when a society places values on those principles, you broadcast people who commit crimes. That's what's at stake here. What's at stake is the very bedrock of what we stand for. And I'm not exaggerating. I think this is actually at stake. I think we are entering a brave new world where they will put people in jail like me. There's no question. I've already been to jail. It already happened. And again, I think it's scary. And I think that at least they covered the story. At least they covered the story.
James, this is the question I'm sure most people are thinking. I know you targeted some Democrat, right? Would you share with us what party Mr. Bell is?
He's a Republican.
Yes, and I think that's an important, part that
Well, he
you
voted
can't
for
be.
he voted for Republican. I don't know what party he's part of, but he voted for Republican in Florida. And what's that? Registered Republican.
So this was not targeted at somebody of, you know, the Democratic Party.
That's correct.
And I think that's important that people understand that.
Thank you for bringing that up, that he voted for. I'm not, this is not a partisan endeavor. He voted for Republican in 2016. Bernie Sanders, obviously Democrat. Hugo Palmer was a Democrat. But in 2012, the ballots that were given out and the names of the voters, of the dead voters, were Republican and Democrat. So it's been about half and half with the voter fraud here in New Hampshire. But thank you for bringing that up. That's a great point.
James,
Yes.
I first became aware of you over Acorn, but it's been many moons since then. What are you most proud of? Is there one that stands out that really, really made a difference in your mind?
Investigations or projects?
Yeah, just any of them that, I mean, you've done this at least 7 years.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Acorn would be 10 years ago as of September, and Andrew Breitbart came with me to Diane's house in September of 2011, which was almost 8 years ago. So of all the so we've done almost 200 investigations in the last 10 years. 200. I think the most consequential one was the one in the 2016 election involving Bob Creamer, which I know you've reported a little bit on that. Bob Creamer and Scott Faval, who were activists working for Hillary Clinton, and were talking about with us the incitement of fomenting of violence at Trump rallies and making it look like it was Trump's fault. And this was mentioned in the presidential debates by Donald Trump, and led to the resignation of Bob Creamer and Scott Faval being fired by the DNC. And they, you know, that was a consequential thing. And I think that this is about stopping people and citizens from breaking these sorts of stories. They don't like that people like me exist and Veritas exists, and they would rather us not do these stories. So that's what this is really about. But I think that the answer to your question is the 2016 videos were the most impactful of all the work that we've done.
Hi, and I apologize if this has been asked already. Who tipped you off about Mr. Bell? That's question number one. And were you arrested in connection to the expose you did on Planned Parenthood? That's question number two.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so question number one is we, from sources, got all the data of voters in Florida and all the data from Florida's in New Hampshire. And then we did, this was a lot of work. This was not just an Excel, you know, file, click, export. This was just a lot of work because the data is dirty, it's confusing, there's a lot of anomalies, there's Junior, I'm James O'Keefe, my dad's name is Jim O'Keefe. There's a lot of these anomalies where you think you have a match when you don't, and we had to do a lot of digging and cross-checking and corroboration. This is sort of what, you know, what we had to do, and we found a bunch of matches. And then we went to go speak to them at their doors, try to interview them. Many people don't want to talk to us. People who do want to talk to us don't confess it. We got Mr. Bell to confess it. So it was about 2 months of work. 2 months of work pretty much with a team of 6 people working full-time. That's how we, the Planned Parenthood thing. So I did not personally do that. I know the man who did. David DeLyden is a friend of mine, and I've worked with Lila Rose. I have done undercover work into Planned Parenthood. He filmed them with the body parts at Planned Parenthood. That was filmed 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It was a very impactful investigation, and it showed what Planned Parenthood is doing, and he got into some legal trouble because he signed some contracts with Planned Parenthood as an undercover reporter. So this is a pioneering issue, undercover work, and you have to be very mindful of where the lines are and whether to step over them and whether not to step over them. So it's some tricky constitutional issues which are coming coming on the forefront here with Julian Assange and what he did with his coaching Manning with the password. Did he do that or not? I don't know what he did. If he hacked into the computer, he broke the law. If he was merely encouraging the source to give him the information, I don't think that's a crime. New York Times does it all the time, by the way. New York Times coaches people. The IRS guy gives Trump's tax returns to the New York Times, okay? They're not going to prosecute the New York Times. If the New York Times reporter goes, well, but curious eyes never run dry. Have you found Trump's tax returns? They're not going to prosecute the New York Times reporter for saying that. That's journalism. That's what journalism do. They get leakers to give them information. So again, I think this is really about the rights of the American citizens to expose things the powers that be don't want exposed. That's what this is really about. Whose ox is being gored by the published information? Not whether you can publish not whether you have a right to publish. That's protected by New York Times versus the United States.
Croc TV.